Alameda, you could see a larger group. This was a group that obeyed the initial dispersal order in front of the federal building. They moved away from the federal building, but now they're blocking traffic on the overpass over the 101 freeway, and they are basically not cooperating in terms of vacating the area. So you have a skirmish line right there on the left side of your screen there. That's all LAPD right there. And some of those might be California Highway Patrol as well. But in any event, there's going to be a priority placed on getting them off the freeway, because as tempers flare, this kind of a standoff on an overpass above the freeway is kind of a recipe for disaster. As you guys remember, that's where some of the ugliest pictures came on Sunday night, as folks were throwing things and targeting passerbys, mainly law enforcement, underneath that overpass. So that overpass is a weak point that law enforcement is going to want to clear out relatively soon here. They're being very patient. Again, the main goal was to keep these folks away from the federal building. They appear to have accomplished that goal. It has been mostly peaceful all day, but there is now a fair amount of disobedience taking place as these folks refuse to go home, guys. No, in fact, we all noticed that up here. They were really ready for them, not only at the entrance ramps and exit ramps, but this particular group found a hole in the fence and rushed the freeway, I would say within 5 to 10 minutes max. They had that freeway cleared out. The CHP moved in really quick with all of these reinforcements, formed an immediate skirmish line. It wasn't without incident. There was a bit of a struggle, some pushing, some shoving. A small brawl broke out. A couple of people were initially placed under arrest, and then a lot of the group managed to get off of the freeway. But CHP jumped into action very, very quickly, especially relative to other similar protests in the past that have made their way onto the freeway. I think that is a real sign on the part of the higher ranks within the department, all the way up to the politicians. They were ready for this, and they were in place to make sure that episodes like that don't last too long. Well, this is a different group. So it's a good point, Michelle. There was also a set of arrests with another few dozen people over at the actual federal building on Alameda Street. So I believe that dispersal order was given at around 2 o'clock, and most of the group, I would say it was a total of somewhere between 300, maybe 400 people at its peak. Most of those people vacated the area. Some of them are in this group that you're looking at here. But that initial group thinned out, and there was about 50 to 100 people that refused to leave Alameda in front of the federal building. In an effort to keep those folks away from the National Guard, away from the federal authorities, they did go ahead and form a ring around that group of protesters and began placing them into zip ties. Probably upwards, I would say, of at least 50 to 75 people, maybe even more. This is a separate group here. I think the folks that are being taken in here are directly related to that initial rush of the freeway. They've kind of just been milling around downtown as between California Highway Patrol and LAPD kind of follows them and moves them around. They've just been kind of circling, mostly peaceful, waving flags. Then we've seen a little bit of singing and dancing, some peaceful marching, but it's time to go home once that dispersal order is given, and since it's not a permitted protest, they don't have the right to block traffic. And especially, as I mentioned, this overpass. I think this overpass may prove to be a sensitive soft spot here if they don't get off pretty quickly, because there's going to be an effort here pretty soon to clear off that overpass. Mark, this is all about optics. I've been thinking this for the last 72 hours, and it's become more and more obvious that the optics here are really the priority for all of these different agencies, our local departments, again, the higher ranks all the way up to the politicians. It's very apparent that they are in place and ready to take action to avoid some of the ugliest pictures that have been coming out in the overnight hours and earlier over the weekend. I will say, just as a raw fact, the number of protesters out on the street this afternoon, including the group here, including the group at the federal building, including the folks that even rushed the freeway, they are far outnumbered by the number of law enforcement that are out here this afternoon. I would say for every protester out here, there's probably about a half a dozen cops. And so that just kind of gives you an idea of the ratio, law enforcement to protester. They are far outnumbered by law enforcement. Usually it's the other way around, right? Normally we're talking about how law enforcement is so overpowered and outnumbered. It is the exact opposite today. Out my window for a minute if you can. Any cars on that overpass? Nobody stuck, though, stranded? Can you identify those skirmish lines between LAPD and CHP? Broadway and 4th. Okay. Copy. Fourth and Broadway group. Where? Up here? I got it. Copy. Give me something to show. Let's go. Let's go back to the. Let's go back to the. Okay. No, nothing like that. Push in on the bridge. Not really. They're pretty much standing their ground there on the overpass, right at the detention center. You can see LAPD with the skirmish line continuing to keep them kind of boxed in here. I'm sorry. Say again, Robbie. Gotcha. There's another group that is on the move coming down, I think, Main Street. These are some of the stragglers from earlier. All of this group, remember, started the day at the detention center, at the federal building, and after that dispersal order has kind of splintered off into different groups, and they are now basically marching peacefully, by our observation, throughout the downtown areas. So they're kind of meandering, zigzagging their way through this area, all in the same general vicinity. This happens to be probably the largest concentration. At one point they were split into 2 or 3, but I think after they were cleared out of the south side of the detention center, they kind of went around and then conjoined again. And now this is pretty much the large group that is coming up Spring Street. So that's Spring Street and 2nd Street. You can see they do have the street fully shut down. Again, this is not a permitted protest, and an unlawful assembly was already declared in front of the federal building. Whether they make an effort to break this group up or when that's going to happen, still yet to be seen. You'd like to probably see it, and I would expect it to happen before the sun goes down. Okay. Did some go off? Show me any more people running? Okay. Do we have 45 minutes? Hey there. Hey there, can you hear me? Okay. What street is that one? When you turn on to, I think it is Cesar Chavez. I just want to double check. Yeah, it is Cesar Chavez, I think. Welcome back to Eyewitness News at 5 o'clock. Chris Christie up in Air 7 as we continue to follow a protest taking place in the streets of downtown LA. A dispersal order has been given in front of the federal building, but dozens and dozens, upwards of 100 or two, are still marching through the streets here, taking a turn onto Cesar Chavez, waving flags and peacefully expressing their frustration with ICE. Reporting live from Air 7, I'm Chris Christie, ABC 7 Eyewitness News. Show me in relation. Oh, that's the federal building. Okay. All right. Okay. A little bit. Yeah, that'd be good. Is that first? Temple. Temple. Copy that. That's right, Mark. This is part of that crowd that's fizzling out on that overpass that you just saw. They have made their way up Los Angeles Street. They have joined another large group over on Temple, and they just passed the Federal Building. It appears this group of about, there's at least several hundred people in this pretty large group peacefully marching, and it appears this is the group that is making their way over towards Grant Park for that rally that's set to take place this evening. So you can see them coming down Temple, coming up on Spring Street underneath that tree. I would estimate about 300 to 400 people. So a growing crowd as these different splinter groups kind of join up again after a full day of marching around downtown. Of course, there was a moment where things got tense on the freeway. Many of them were shoved off of the freeway back up to the street level, and now it looks like everybody is rejoining here at City Hall. Guys, back to you. What's up? Oh. Air 7 News Desk, yep. Do you have any details on that that rally that's supposed to happen here tonight at Grant Park? I don't know. I heard somebody say something about something at Grant Park. I don't have any info on it though. I'd love to have some. Thank you, thank you. Is there weather coming in? Really? Okay. Uh, Grant Park? Yeah, it looks wide now. Just give me an idea. Just, you're looking at, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Where are they going? Those guys. No, the cops going the wrong way. Code 3, wrong way. Show me the group. Grant Park. That's right, Michelle, continuing to keep an eye on a large group of protesters continuing to make their way through downtown LA. They have just passed Grand Park, where there is a vigil scheduled later on this evening. I presume Many of them will be returning to Grant Park, but they appear to be moving further down on First Street near Hill. You can see a large group behind these buildings and under the trees. I would estimate in the neighborhood of 300, maybe even a little bit more, as they just march through here. Right now, no interference by LAPD, but of course the police department is keeping an eye on the situation. Reporting live from Air 7, I'm Chris Christie, ABC 7 Eyewitness News. We must be coming up on something. What's the next? What's the next maintenance? Oof. When? What? How much? How much more? Do you know? I'm sorry. Say it again. Oh wow.
Coverage right, you might get the ball still. So I'm sure everybody's heard of those routes where, you know, you kind of design to clear out, or maybe based off a certain coverage, you'll be eliminated.
Let's get you live now to Mayor Karen Bass,
Good
who's
evening,
speaking at a press conference.
I wanted to let the city know that I have declared a local emergency and issued a curfew for downtown Los Angeles to stop the vandalism, to stop the looting. Many businesses have now been affected by or vandalized. Last night, there were 23 businesses that were looted, and I think that if you drive through downtown LA, the graffiti is everywhere and has caused significant damages to businesses and a number of properties. So my message to you is, if you do not live or work in downtown LA, avoid the area. Law enforcement will arrest individuals who break the curfew, and you will be prosecuted. Hundreds of officers from police and sheriff departments from across the region and state are working alongside LAPD through a unified command structure. The curfew will be in place tonight from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. I want to thank the governor for his partnership, and especially thank our state and local leaders and deputies, officers and deputies who are working tirelessly. So curfew guidance, again, it will begin at 8 p.m. tonight and go until 6 a.m. tomorrow. I will consult with elected leaders and law enforcement officials tomorrow on the continuation of the curfew, but we certainly expect for it to last for several days. The curfew area will be between the 5 freeway and to the 110, and the 10 freeway to where the 110 freeway and 5 freeway merge. You look at the map, and you can see that the city of Los Angeles is a massive area, 502 square miles. The area of downtown where the curfew will take place is 1 square mile. I think it is important to point this out, not to minimize the vandalism and violence that has taken place there. It has been significant, but it is extremely important to know that what is happening in this 1 square mile is not affecting the city. Some of the imagery of the protests and the violence gives the appearance as though this is a citywide crisis, and it is not. So everyone must abide by this curfew. Limited exceptions will apply for residents, people traveling to and from work, and credentialed media representatives. With that, I would like to turn it over to Chief Jim McDonnell.
Thank you, Mayor Bass, and good afternoon, everyone. As the mayor stated, a curfew for the impacted area as shown here will go into effect tonight. And I want to be absolutely clear that if you're within that designated curfew zone between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. And are not exempt under the order, you're going to be subject to arrest. The curfew boundaries are as follows: from the 5 freeway to the 110 freeway, and from the 10 freeway to the point where the 110 and the 5 merge. Easier to look at it on that map for description. The curfew is necessary, a necessary measure to protect lives and safeguard property following several consecutive days of growing unrest throughout the city. Since Saturday, we've seen a concerning escalation in unlawful and dangerous behavior. On Saturday, LAPD officers made 27 arrests. On Sunday, that number rose to 40. By Monday, arrests totaled 114, and today alone, we've made 197 arrests. The recent days, it's been as a part of a unified command with our partner agencies who've responded through mutual aid compact and been very, very helpful to us, and we're very thankful for that participation. Of those I mentioned for today, 130 were arrested near Commercial and Alameda. An additional 67 were taken into custody after unlawfully occupying the 101 freeway near Commercial Street. Our CHP partners were instrumental in that. So again, let me be clear that this behavior, blocking freeways, city streets, and on-ramps, refusing to comply with lawful dispersal orders, and interfering with public safety operations is dangerous, unlawful, and won't be tolerated. If you are in the curfew zone during the restricted hours without that legal exemption, you will be arrested. If you assault an officer in any fashion, you will be arrested. We're operating under a unified command with our partners at the Los Angeles City Fire Department, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, the California Highway Patrol. We're fully coordinated, and our shared mission is clear: to restore peace and ensure the safety of everyone in our city. We previously mobilized part of our department at LAPD while keeping our ability to be able to provide the services that our community deserves going. We're going to be adding to that deployment with additional internal LAPD resources in the days ahead. The curfew does not apply to residents within the designated area, individuals experiencing homelessness, credentialed media, or public safety and emergency personnel. To be clear again, that's not about silencing voices or suppressing lawful protest. When that expression crosses into unlawful conduct, when lives are put at risk, and when our city's safety is compromised, we must act, and we will act. We urge all Angelenos to cooperate with these public safety measures. Our shared goal is to protect our communities and return to a state of calm and safety for everyone. Thank you. Mayor.
Let me introduce now the councilwoman who represents the majority of the district, Councilwoman Isabel Harato.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm here today not just as a council member who represents downtown LA, but as its advocate who deeply loves and believes in this community. The history of Los Angeles began right here in downtown, where 200 years later, the grouping of historic neighborhoods remains the beating heart of our city, a place with rich culture and deep community. Downtown LA is a place where workers clock in before sunrise and small business owners know their customers by name, where neighbors greet each other on the sidewalk, and where generations of families have built lives, shared stories, made memories together side by side. It's one of the most vibrant and resilient and hopeful parts of our city. But too often, downtown LA is treated like a backdrop for major events, not the living, breathing community it is. And right now, it's hurting. I am deeply proud that downtown has always been the place where Angelenos from all over the city gather to peacefully protest. I support the right to demonstrate, and the mayor and I know that right is sacred, and at times it's necessary, but we must also face that what's happening right now. When these peaceful rallies end and the protesters head home, another element moves in: opportunists who come in under the cover of a peaceful protest to ravage and destroy. They are ruining local small businesses, smashing storefronts, and threatening the safety of the very community that has always welcomed people from across the city and globe. This isn't just broken glass or stolen goods, it's someone's livelihood, someone's safe space, someone's home that's been violated. And it's happening in a neighborhood where working class families are just trying to live. Our street vendors, our garment workers, many of whom are immigrants, continue to watch their communities be torn apart. And that's why I'm thankful to the mayor for leveraging this tool, enacting a curfew to begin tonight. This has been something that many of my constituents in downtown have been calling for what they're facing. This curfew is not about silencing protests. It's about protecting people and ensuring that the local residents, small businesses, our families, our elders, and our workers are not left vulnerable to those who come only to destroy. What happens in downtown reverberates all throughout LA, and when we protect downtown, we protect our city. And we're investing in its future, and we invest in our shared future. So to my colleagues and to our residents and everyone watching, downtown LA is not just a center for the First Amendment expression, it's a community. It's a home, and the people in its deserve our protection and care. That path ahead may be uncertain, but our responsibility to protect and uplift this neighborhood is not. I want to close this message from my constituents so that you hear them loud and clear. Downtown LA is home. Please keep it safe, and let's keep each other safe. Thank you, Los Angeles.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. I'd now like to introduce Nella McCosker, who is the CEO of the Central City Association. We were having conversations this morning about a couple of things. One, the ongoing problem with violence, but also the need, when all of this subsides, is to repair and restore downtown Los Angeles, especially the businesses and properties that have been hit with graffiti. Nella McCosker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Council Member. The swift action today to take a look at and examine how this curfew could be put in place is a good example of the leadership we see and continue to need for downtown. CCA, or Central City Association, represents businesses, institutions, nonprofits, the fabric of downtown Los Angeles that also represents the wider city. And it is the case that downtown is a neighborhood. It is the case that downtown is where immigrant-owned businesses try to operate and thrive. And so we can differentiate between downtown being a place to gather, to have your voice be heard, to peacefully protest, and the actions that we've seen each evening since this occurred in the last few days. So thank you for applying this tool. There are others certainly that we could look at as well, but hopefully Angelenos rally together in support of this really important section of our city because of the symbol and of the benefits it provides to everyone across Los Angeles. Thank you.
I'd like to open up for questions, but before I acknowledge Dr. Earl Suthers, who is the president of the Los Angeles Police Commission. Let me just say also that we did not hear about any raids that took place today. The problem is that we don't know how long these raids are going to go on. If they're going to go on for 30 days, that's what the rumor is. And if we want to see our city peaceful again, I will call upon the administration one more time to end the raids. With that, let's open it up for questions.
I have a question for Mayor Bass and for Councilmember Jurado. For the mayor, what changed today that made you think that the curfew was now necessary? Last night was definitely not the first night where graffiti and vandalism and some violence were happening in the city, so why did you decide now that it was time for the curfew? And for Councilmember Jurado, after you called certain elements opportunists, ravaging and destroying the community, one of your staffers was arrested downtown, and now there's a curfew in your district, and I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to that and how you're feeling about the situation with one of your staffers.
Let me just say that a curfew has been in consideration for several days, but clearly after the violence that took place last night, 23 businesses looted, and just the extensive, widespread nature of the vandalism, we reached a tipping point and declared a state of emergency and called for the curfew. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you for that question. Yes, I'm aware of what's happened to my staff member. They're on unpaid leave right now. I hold my staff to the highest standards while I wait to see due process, and so we'll see the outcome of that. But I see that as separate and apart from a reaction to what our constituents want in the city and how this type of opportunism has escalated between yesterday and the day before. And, you know, frankly, I admit my humility here and my beginnerness in that I'm new to downtown, but our downtown stakeholders have seen this multiple times over and had to basically develop their own strategies. And they saw the warning signs of how this could get worse. And they knew from past experiences that curfews have been ways in order to stem this and to calm the city once again. And it's but one tool that we can execute at this time.
We're going to go right here and then we'll head over.
Yeah, Mayor Bass, I know that you were referencing that there have been 23 businesses that have now been damaged, broken into, looted. Looking at videos of the Apple Store and Adidas. Any sort of estimate of the cost of damage at this point with all this vandalism? And also, what is the latest on the Marines arriving here? And has there been anything else about what their mission will be?
So there is not a financial estimate right now, unless Nella has one.
In the case of...
Do you want to?
It's millions in the case of some of the larger In the case of some of the larger retail stores, it's in the millions. But I don't know of the 23 what the total is.
And I think it's really hard to estimate the vandalism from the graffiti. It's just widespread. I know that you have seen it.
And as far as the Marines arriving.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did ask that question. Who knows? I mean, I don't know if you know, Chief. I mean, the bottom line is that we're not told. Basically, we have to operate on rumors. So rumor has it that there's 700 Marines that are going to come here. I have no idea what they would do when they would get here. Right now, we have 100 National Guard whose sole mission is to protect the federal building downtown. That's 100. There's another 100 in Westwood protecting the federal building there, and I haven't heard of any protests that had anything to do with ICE taking place at the Westwood federal building, unless you have, Chief. Right. So we just don't know. And I think that's a problem with the administration, because to come in such a massive way and to make the announcements that all of this was going to happen and then not communicated with the local jurisdiction as to when, what, how, why, is really problematic.
We're going to go to Craig and then we'll head over there. Mayor, you mentioned at the beginning of the press conference the curfew to be in this evening, dusk to dawn.
8 p.m. tonight.
8 p.m. tonight until
6 a.m.
6 a.m. Last time we had a curfew like that was under Mayor Bradley. I think it was 3 days. Are you taking this day by day at this point? That's one question. Then as a second one, when do you plan on reaching out to Donald Trump, President Trump? You said you want to talk with him, that you will reach out.
Actually, I started that reach out today, so we will see what happens. I will keep you posted.
Can you update us on the parameters of the curfew area? I just want to make sure people heard that who didn't.
Yes, and it's the map that is right there, so it basically is all of downtown Los Angeles. But, you know, in LA, we identify by our freeways. So all of the freeway numbers are there, 110, the 5, the 10.
This is the area where the protests have been focused.
Yes, and actually that's a broader area that the protests have been focused. You know that the protests have been limited to about 5 streets in downtown Los Angeles. And again, that's why it's so important to let the people know this is not all of Los Angeles. If you put downtown Los Angeles in the context of the overall city map, you see how big it is. 1 square mile compared to 503 square miles.
Mayor, in terms of what the federal authorities are doing, I know you're saying they're not telling you when they're going to be doing these various raids. Are you getting anywhere in terms of cooperation of notifying your police agencies in advance so they can make some plans to deploy, if necessary, to some of the local communities?
No, we're not. No, we're not. And we also don't know, again, about the ICE raids. And that's why I think, you know, I would appeal to the president to stop the ICE raids so that we can have stability in our city. I think about the families who are afraid to go to work and go to school. I was talking to a friend today who, in her local grocery store, the shelves were empty. A lot of the shelves were empty because people aren't coming to work to stock the shelves. We have to look at the contributions that the immigrant population makes to our local economy. And you know that there are some industries that are the majority are immigrant labor. And so when you frighten immigrants and they don't want to come to work, you are hitting at the heart of our local economy. The nannies that can't show up, the gardeners that can't show up. That impacts households in a way that I don't think people often realize the extent.
Any other questions? Yeah, Mayor Bass, I don't know if you heard earlier, the president referred to that it would look similar to how it did back in January, the LA wildfires, if you didn't have federal law enforcement here. When you look at it for yourself as a leader of the city and Chief McDonnell as well, what are some of the difficulties when it comes to planning, not having unison with yourself, the state, and the federal?
And so I think I missed the first part of it. He said the reason why the wildfires were handled was because there were federal police?
He said it would look similar to how it did during the wildfires here and the aftermath if they didn't have the federal law enforcement here.
Yeah, I don't know, Chief. Maybe you want to respond to that. I don't think that question, and sometimes what the president says, it's difficult to kind of understand. What I will tell you, though, is that after the wildfires, you know, were out, the president made sure we had ample resources with the Army Corps of Engineers, and it was a significant contributing factor to us having the fastest recovery of any location in comparison to where other wildfires have taken taken place. It contributed to the fact that in the Palisades now, we have over 2,700 lots that are cleared where people can be rebuilding now. I was at a property a couple of weeks ago where the frame of the house is already up. This, to me, is drastically different. That was in complete cooperation and coordination with the federal government. Right now, we are in the dark. We don't know when things are going to happen. One thing we're sure about, and I think the chief would agree with me, is that we have the capacity to address this situation here, and we don't need armies or National Guard, especially that we didn't even ask for. And the idea that the president took the power away from the governor to do this it was really just unacceptable. But Chief, did you want to, if you want to?
Thank you. To that issue, we have a protocol in place that we use, and when we are dealing with something like this where it takes the resources away from our regular patrol duties and ability to provide the service we do, we mobilize the department, and so that brings in people from vacation and our days off and allows us to use them. We've mobilized the Office of Operations, the biggest part of the department, and our motor officers. We're looking to expand that with additional officers from within. We requested through the Sheriff mutual aid, which then is coordinated by the Office of Emergency Management in the state, OES, I'm sorry, Emergency Services, with the sheriff, and they bring in then surrounding communities and in this case counties to be able to help supplement our resources to deal with the issues at hand. They are tremendous partners. We've worked very closely together for the past couple of days now, and I think we have seen a significant improvement in things, and we will continue to watch for that as we move forward. We're hopeful with this curfew that'll give us additional tool as well to be able to bring this chapter to a close.
When we heard from you this weekend, you mentioned officers being overwhelmed and you needing to get into a position where you can make large-scale arrests, and that you were considering, that you said it was really too early to determine whether or not the National Guard was necessary in the city streets. Given what you've just said, have you reevaluated the potential need for the National Guard?
Yeah, and the I guess the sequence would be, as I mentioned, we request mutual aid, partner agencies from throughout, in this case, the 7-county area. The next step then, if we weren't able to handle the issue, is to request through the sheriff to the governor and the emergency OES at the state National Guard to be deployed. We are nowhere near that. In this environment, we believe we can do what we need to do with the resources that we now have access to, and I think we've seen a dramatic increase in arrests over the last couple of days. I believe that will continue, and that will help bring some order to what we've seen in the past few days. So, no.
Hey, Chief, what does it mean? I'm seeing where the emergency operations center at level 2 activation. What does that mean to the people of LA to know we're at level 2?
Yeah, there's, anybody want to, yeah, go ahead. Probably more specifically, Chief Choi.
Chief Chow, that's okay. Blake Chow from Office of Special Operations. So just like our Department of Operations Center across the hall, when we get into a emergency that needs to be managed, the EOC can be pushed up to a level 2, and that means all the other city departments that work for the mayor come in and have a rep here, and we're able to coordinate city response to anything that's going on within the city. That's what level 2 is.
Let me also just add to your question that you were asking. You know, now that the president has taken over authority of the National Guard, Chief, when you were describing the way it should go, now that has been disrupted, and I think that that's important. I know one of the things that the chief said that we're going to focus on is trying to gather as many local resources as possible, and that includes Los Angeles police officers and trying to bolster the officers that will be stationed downtown, because downtown is where the crisis is right now. Yes, any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
You just heard from LA Mayor Karen Bass and Chief of Police Jim McDonnell, along with Nella McCosker, who represents a lot of business folks in downtown Los Angeles, and Councilmember Isabel Jurado, talking about the effort now to quell the violence and the disruption of downtown LA, stopping the vandalism, enacting a curfew that will begin tonight at 8 p.m.
That curfew will run from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. in the morning, and it will cover the areas between the 5 freeway to the 110 freeway and from the 10 freeway to the merger.
Copy that. Yeah, this is what remains of the bulk of today's protesters out on the streets of downtown LA. They are marching peacefully, in this case, southbound on Olive Street. However, they are going against traffic. They are intermingling with oncoming traffic, so a little tenuous there when you see the mixture of pedestrians and motorists. But in any event, they are marching peacefully through downtown. My presumption is this group, in all likelihood, will be making their way, or at least many of them will be making their way back to Grant Park for that interfaith vigil that's scheduled to take place any minute now. So it looks like this group is going to continue marching down Olive, and we're going to continue to follow them, guys. All right, we're out. Air 7 News Desk. We are heading back to Van Nuys. That's affirmative. What's up? What's up? 8.
Air 7 HD over downtown Los Angeles as protesters continue to demonstrate against the federal raids that began on Friday here in Los Angeles, and we understand they could possibly run 30 days here in the Los Angeles area. That is some reports that we are getting. But again, these are protesters, we believe, making their way to Grand Park, where a rally was set to happen. The big news today from Mayor Bass and law enforcement agencies, LAPD specifically, is that a curfew will be in place starting tonight at 8 p.m. through 6 a.m. in downtown Los Angeles from the 5 freeway, between the 5 freeway to the 110 and between the 10 to the 110-5 freeway merger. I'm not sure if Grand Park falls between those perimeters, unclear about that, but assuming hundreds of people show up to Grand Park, it will be interesting to see if people disperse when they are supposed to at 8 p.m.
Indeed, and if they do not, they are subject to arrest if they don't. Curfew very clear. The exceptions to that have been made clear. If you are not working there, if you are not a resident, if you are not a member, a credentialed member of the media, then you cannot be in downtown Los Angeles beginning at 8 p.m. tonight.
And we're just getting word that Governor Newsom's feed, his address, they're providing it to us, and unfortunately there are some technical issues. It's not working, so we can't share it with you. If we cannot bring it to you live here on this streaming channel, we will of course update you throughout the night on what he had to say to Californians in response to the White House's efforts for the federal raids.
The title of his speech, though, an ominous one, Democracy at a Crossroads. That we do know basically from the title screen that is up there now. Presumably the governor and the state of California now working, and his staff working on fixing the audio issues that are plaguing this right now. We will bring this to you as soon as we can. We hope to bring it to you in its entirety. If it's not available live to us at the outset, we'll try to get a recording of it and play it to you in its entirety. We don't know how long it's going to be, but we know it's an important address from the governor addressing a serious situation in the state of California, and in particular, of course, here in Southern California, where these raids by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, have been ongoing now for the better part of a week.
We'll have all of the latest on that on Eyewitness News at 11 p.m. tonight, but we will also have several news cut-ins where we will share the new details as they become available. As we continue to watch the protests underway in downtown Los Angeles, again, people we believe heading to Grand Park for a rally, an anti-ICE rally. We will bring you the latest on that. Hopefully the violence and hopefully the looting and the vandalism, we don't see any of that tonight. Law enforcement has been in the downtown area all day long. Officers on horses, the CHP were lined up along the 101 freeway earlier today, arresting the folks who made their way onto the 101 freeway. And I should mention that a lot of those protesters willingly went with officers, allowed themselves to be handcuffed and taken away. But again, you see the traffic there in downtown Los Angeles and protesters still on the streets.
Indeed. 11th and Flower in downtown Los Angeles. They appear to be at this point heading west, which would make them west on 11th Street. I think Flower is a north-south street. So as they head there, they're heading, we believe, toward Grand Park, where we're told there might be a prayer vigil out there. All right, let's go now. I guess we've got the audio back. Let's go to it.
Began grabbing people, a deliberate targeting of a heavily Latino suburb. A similar scene played out when a clothing company was raided downtown. In other actions, a U.S. citizen, 9 months pregnant, was arrested. A 4-year-old girl taken. Families separated, friends quite literally disappearing. In response, everyday Angelenos came out to exercise their constitutional right to free speech and assembly, to protest their government's actions. In turn, the state of California and the city and county of Los Angeles sent our police officers to help keep the peace. And with some exceptions, they were successful. Like many states, California is no stranger to this sort of unrest. We manage it regularly and with our own law enforcement. But this, again, was different. What then ensued was a use of tear gas, flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, federal agents detaining people and undermining their due process rights. Donald Trump, without consulting California law enforcement leaders, commandeered 2,000 of our state's National Guard members to deploy on our streets, illegally and for no reason. This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. That's when the downward spiral began. He doubled down on his dangerous National Guard deployment by fanning the flames even harder. And the president, he did it on purpose. As the news spread throughout LA, anxiety for family and friends ramped up. Protests started again. By night, several dozen lawbreakers became violent and destructive. They vandalized property. They tried to assault police officers. Many of you have seen the video clips of cars burning on cable news. If you incite violence, I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account. That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated. Full stop. Already more than 220 people have been arrested, and we're reviewing tapes to build additional cases, and people will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Again, thanks to our law enforcement officers and the majority of Angelenos who protested peacefully, the situation was winding down and was concentrated in just a few square blocks downtown. But that's not what Donald Trump wanted. He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety. He federalized another 2,000 Guard members. He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines. These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement. We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in LA, not in California, not anywhere. We're seeing unmarked cars in school parking lots, kids afraid of attending their own graduation. Trump is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles, well beyond his stated intent to just go after violent and serious criminals. His agents are arresting dishwashers, gardeners, day laborers, and seamstresses. That's just weakness masquerading as strength. Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point. California will keep fighting. We'll keep fighting on behalf of our people, all of our people, including in the courts. Just yesterday, we filed a legal challenge to Donald Trump's reckless deployment of American troops to a major American city. Today, we sought an emergency court order to stop the use of the American military to engage in law enforcement activities across Los Angeles. If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe. Authoritarian regimes begin by targeting people who are least able to defend themselves, but they do not stop there. Trump and his loyalists, they thrive on division because it allows them to take more power and exert even more control. And by the way, Trump, he's not opposed to lawlessness and violence as long as it serves him. What more evidence do we need than January 6th? I ask everyone, take time, reflect on this perilous moment. A president who wants to be bound by no law or constitution, perpetuating a unified assault on American traditions. This is a president who in just over 140 days has fired government watchdogs that could hold him accountable for corruption and fraud. He's declared a war on culture, on history, on science, on knowledge itself. Databases, quite literally, are vanishing. He's delegitimizing news organizations, and he's assaulting the First Amendment. And the threat of defunding them At threat, he's dictating what universities themselves can teach. He's targeting law firms and the judicial branch that are the foundations of an orderly and civil society. He's calling for a sitting governor to be arrested for no other reason than to, in his own words, for getting elected. And we all know this Saturday, he's ordering our American heroes, the United States military, and forcing them to put on a vulgar display to celebrate his birthday, just as other failed dictators have done in the past. Look, this isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation. This is about all of us. This is about you. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. He's taking a wrecking ball to our founding fathers' historic project. 3 co-equal branches of independent government. There are no longer any checks and balances. Congress is nowhere to be found. Speaker Johnson has completely abdicated that responsibility. The rule of law has increasingly been given way to the rule of Don. The founding fathers, they didn't live and die to see this kind of moment. It's time for all of us to stand up. Justice Brandeis, he said it best. In a democracy, the most important office, with all due respect, Mr. President, is not the presidency, and it's certainly not governor. The most important office is office of citizen. At this moment, we all need to stand up and be held to account, a higher level of accountability. If you exercise your First Amendment rights, please, please do it peacefully. I know many of you are feeling deep anxiety, stress, and fear. But I want you to know that you are the antidote to that fear and that anxiety. What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him.
Strong words. Go ahead, Javon.
Sorry to interrupt, Mark. I was just going to say you've been listening to Governor Gavin Newsom addressing the federal raids, blaming President Donald Trump for escalating the protests and the aftermath of those protests, the vandalism and the looting, pointing out the use of tear gas, flashbang grenades, that Donald Trump, without any communication with law enforcement, sent in commandeered 2,000 National Guard members, sending them to California. He talked about some of the people who have been taken into custody by ICE being dishwashers, gardeners, seamstresses, not the violent criminals that President Trump mentioned they would be focusing on when this effort began.
He's addressing the details of the ICE raids, but he took it further. He took it to the broader strokes, hence the title of the event being Democracy at a Crossroads, because he took aim at the president rhetorically, saying that democracy itself is under assault right now, and calling on people to stand up and rise up peacefully and use their First Amendment right, because he believes and is saying that the president is basically trying to undermine democracy and trying to bring in authoritarianism. It is the strongest condemnation thus far of the president by Governor Gavin Newsom, who has made no secret of his opposition to this president and who has been a very forceful voice in opposition to President Donald Trump.
He also mentioned this is not just about protests and California. This is about all of us. He's referring to other states, saying that other states are next. And to your point, Mark, he repeated several times that democracy is under assault.
We will have more on what the governor said, more on what the reaction is to it. We can expect, given the political climate and environment, that the president will weigh in his own way. We will bring that to you if and when it happens. And we're going to keep an eye as well on the protests that continue in downtown LA. We make note of this march that is heading toward Grand Park. It is peaceful, and the efforts to maintain the peace will continue with a curfew in downtown Los Angeles. Until we return, we will leave you with this, that Eyewitness News will return and cover all elements of this story from every angle as best we can tonight. We'll be back.
Sorry, Boo, say again? Yeah. Nope, not yet. Love it. You got it. Copy that.